So I know this was not ChatGPT research because
No.
ChatGPT would not return this, but quite literally that project, and I've done talks about this before, really changed the way that I think about the marketing journey.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hossman. Joining me today is a brand new rock star. He's the founder of Digital Surgeons, Chief AI Officer of Resonance Studio, and he helps brands like Lego and Microsoft and Unilever grow through emotionally intelligent marketing and creative innovation. Pete Senna, thank you so much for joining me.
It is a joy to be here, pun intended.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, cool. All right. So, Pete, I want to dive right in. I'm really excited about our conversation today. You've worked with, I mentioned these brands on purpose, like biggest brands in the world, Lego, Microsoft, Unilever. What's one lesson from those collaborations that stuck with you?
That's a great question.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, just one. Deadlines are not no, just kidding. So the beauty of working with the biggest brands in the world is, I think, whether you're working with a solopreneur that's just getting their business started, which I've worked with, all the way up to a Fortune 50, which I currently work with, I think that we all have the same thing in common as human beings, right? Which is we are trying to achieve something, and something drives us at the most core of what we do, right? It could be fear, love, greed, but we're all driven by many of the same things. So I'd say if I had to give you one little like golden nugget that just kind of has bounced off my brain for the last 20 plus years, it's inputs drive outcomes and inputs drive outputs. And what I mean by that specifically is I think a lot of times people focus on the thing that they're doing, right? You know, in the case of Lego, that we were building them an app, or in the case of some of the stuff with Unilever, we're building them a campaign. So some of those are more tech driven, some of them are more creative driven, marketing driven. But at the end of the day, all of these things we're trying to shape or design an outcome. And I think it's really easy to forget about that when you're working on those types of things. And the thing I would say to anyone listening to this audience is that, you know, we're in the business of designing experiences, right? If you're listening to this podcast, it's because you're designing experiences for your clients or for yourself or for your teams, right? At the end of the day, start with the outcome in mind and work your way backwards, because that's the best way to start from a place of possibility and then make magic happen. Versus when you start with the constraint, it gets really difficult to think outside the proverbial box. So I would say that's 20 years and 20 seconds for you, Kirby.
Man, that's really good. Stephen Covey said years ago, begin with the end in mind, right? Like the idea of what do you want to have happen? I think that's great advice. I know that you've also talked about, quote, designing the delight at scale. That sentence caught me. I was like, I really like that. So what did working with Lego teach you about creating joy in brand experience?
So I'll tell you a really fun story. So I get hired by Lego, and one of my first projects with them is to help drive one of their innovation mandates. And what they basically brought me in to do is they wanted me to take a study of best in breed interactive designed experiences. And at the time I was the chief creative officer of my firm. And my job was to design amazing experiences across any channel. And believe it or not, one of the best sources of inspiration that I found in terms of designing delight at scale was Disney. So what I did is I went really, really deep, and I interviewed some people who are Imagineers at Disney, and I went deep into just looking across all different brands, all different categories. Of course, looked at Lego too, because they know a thing or two. And one of the things that really got me was the design of the Magic Kingdom. And at the time, sort of understanding, you know, what they make the ground out of that's got like rubber in the thing. So you have a spring in your step, and how they're sort of using olfactory senses to be able to put smells of bakeries and cookies coming out of, you know, the sewer grates, which is all designed from an experience perspective. And this was, you know, again, 10 plus years ago at this point, easily. But I tell you that, Kirby, and I tell the audience that because what I learned there in that first project working with Lego was that when you play to all the five senses and you think about every micro step in the customer journey, the before, the during, the after, when things go right, when things go wrong, when you map that journey at scale, which so many of us don't do because we're so focused on that thing, when you do that, you can really design for delight at scale. And I think that some people will design for, you know, conversion rate or designed for retention or whatever that metric is that drives your organization, what I tell people is step out of your field, right, for a second, train in different fields, right? So if you're trying to make a service business better, go read the book on reasonable hospitality, right? And learn how people in high-end restaurants have the front of house and back of house, right? If you're playing a sport and you're trying to build a particular skill set, go do the direct opposite thing. So for me, that was the big thing that I would say working with Lego really taught me. Again, Lego is the best play company in the world, right? They, most people don't realize this, but adult fans of Legos or Apples is actually one of the biggest buyer of Lego products globally, right? So it was digging into that where I really started to think about how do I design for delight at scale. And I'll tell you, Kirby, after that project, and you've done so much great homework here. So I know this was not ChatGPT research because ChatGPT
No.
would not return this, but quite literally that project, and I've done talks about this before, really changed the way that I think about the marketing journey for companies of all shapes and sizes. And it really gets down to like, what is the one small thing that's going to make the most massive difference? And sometimes it's the thing that you don't think about, right? Like at certain spas, it's a very specific olfactive scent that they're able to use at the point of conversion, right? These are small things that most people don't think fit into the P&L, but when you put them in, magic happens. So I hope that answers the question.
It totally answers the question, and it's got me thinking. We do events, and it's made me feel like, okay, we've got this part not right, but we're at least on the right track. Is when we design events for our customers, I'm always thinking, I talk about the five senses. What's it sound like? What's it smell like? What's the first thing they see? All those things. And I do think that does impact, because again, I think so many times you kind of referenced it. We look at things through the eye of the marketer or the entrepreneur, not as the person experiencing it. Right. Like, and when you walk it through with the vision of somebody who's seen it for the first time, it can really make a huge difference. So I love that, man. That's really, really good. So you mentioned ChatGPT. You've said that AI is changing the way marketers ideate. I agree with that. How do you personally use AI to accelerate brainstorming without losing the human creative spark?
Yeah, well, the first thing the audience should know about me is that I'm very biased here because, the Resonance is an AI venture studio, right? So we are a company that helps companies become more creative, AI first companies, right? So what we literally do is go into companies, help them to productize what they do, help them to be tech enabled, and help them to leverage all these amazing technologies. So I'm not even joking, 60 hours a week thinking about this stuff. So what you should know is I've made more mistakes than I've had successes, because anybody who
Yeah.
tells you otherwise is full of it. But let me give you
Yeah.
the short, easy answer, right? So people always call me and they say, Pete, I'm looking for the alpha, right? So if you call your friends that are into stocks or into finance investing, they go, what's the alpha? What's the alpha? What's the thing that's going to make a difference? The insight, the pick, the one thing that's going to be the biggest difference. What I tell people is I've looked for what I call creative alpha. So when you ask a large language model like a ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Anthropic Claude a question, the question is the answer, just like in life, right? So what I tell people a lot of times, what I do differently so that I don't end up with, concepts that use the word unleash or unlock, which is what ChatGPT does because it's the most common words that certain people use, right? These things are basically Microsoft Clippy on steroids, right? They're predicting the
Yeah.
next token, they're predicting the next word, right? So I tell people that the way to sort of unlock that creative alpha is what I did that was a little bit different was I went out and studied real stories of creativity, real stories of how people garner insights. I studied anthropologists, mathematicians, inventors, marketers, and I took all that information and I trained some of my AIs using fine-tuned models and that sort of thing on a very specific thing, kind of like my version of ChatGPT. I call it Vulcan, kind of playing off of this idea of like forged in fire, if you will. What that's allowed me to do is basically have a creative thought partner and a creative sparring partner. So instead of just like doing it for me, which is what ChatGPT tries to do, I create the ability for me to dialogue back and forth, and it helps me with all my deliverables. It helps me with marketing ideas, business ideas, analyzing things. So much like you would still use a ChatGPT, what I always say is the place you start is the place you end, right? So when you think about how to use AI, you want to prompt the AI, you want to show it what good and bad looks like. You want to show what a cheesy idea is to you, what a great idea is for you. And then that's going to help guide it and shape it. And I would say now, like as a father, my son's 4 years old, and I look at like kind of raising him and how I'm learning to be a dad and existing differently in the world. I think the way that we lead and coach our people, the way we lead and parent, is no different than the way we need to interact with these AIs. And I
Mm.
think that when people start to take that as a concept, the outputs just change completely. I do a workshop on prompt engineering where I teach people how to prompt AIs. And every time I finish that workshop, whether it's on Zoom or in person, people approach me and they're like, this has been such an unlock for me. Like teaching them how to write prompts that write prompts, stuff like that. So what I would say is creativity is the competitive advantage that we all have. So don't just let those muscles kind of go,
Yeah.
entrophy, because once you lose them, you lose them. So I hope that answers the question.
It does, and one of the things that as I dug deeper into AI and started to really understand how to prompt engineer better, and I was like, I'm realizing what a shitty communicator I am as a leader, because I'm like, oh, well, no wonder people don't understand because I haven't done a good. Like it's all here, and I think you must understand. And when you do interact with AI in a I don't know, more productive way. It's like, oh, okay, I need to feed it better information. Just what you just said. And it really was an unlock for me, like you said, to go, oh, yeah, okay. If I do better, it will be better for me. So, but in PS, so will my team, right? Like that's,
Can I give you
yeah,
little hack there?
yes.
So I actually have a button that I press. So when I'm on meetings, I use a meeting note taker, and I have a button that I can press that basically does the equivalent of tells the AI I'm rambling, and it comes back and tells me a succinct version. Almost think of it like summary at the thing. And that thing has been such a game changer. I built it. It's been a game changer for me and using that. And one of the things I recently posted about on LinkedIn, and this post went pretty viral, got thousands of views and whatnot, and likes and all that, was I used Anthropic Claude. I fed it a bunch of my meetings and my emails, and I asked it to define what I called my communication codex. So, Kirby, if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to send you the step by step on how to do it. It's easy, you can do it yourself. It actually generated a guide that I can give to my team on how I like to receive information, how to best engage with me, things to say and not say to me. And I'll tell you, Kirby, doing that opened up a wealth of possibilities for me with my team. It got the team being very open and honest with me. It was some hard stuff to hear, right? They shared some harsh feedback, but I feel like I'm so much closer to my team now, and I think that they would probably say if you were to interview them, that I'm showing up as a better leader now because we both see eye to
Mm,
eye. So that's where I
yeah.
think AI can be this. People see AI as this destroyer of worlds. I see it as a connector of consciousness.
Oh man, this is great. This is great. Bonus question for you. Obviously, I live in the branded merch space, and that's sort of my area of expertise. But I'm trying to ask some of the smartest minds in the marketing space about their best branded merch experience that you've ever been a part of, whether it's giving or receiving.
Wow. So I'm going to answer that two ways. I'm going
Okay.
to answer the way that most people don't answer, which is I love it when I get a great t shirt. And I'll tell you why. I often speak on conferences like this. Today I'm wearing my kind of robot shirt here, and I get a lot of impressions from people. So when I'm on a stage in front of 400 people and I'm wearing a t shirt, most branded merch, most t shirts suck. The blend they use, it kind of falls apart. So one of the brands I did a lot of work with in the early days, pre-IPO, was a brand called SoFi. Big brand, everyone knows SoFi now. And I still have my SoFi t-shirt. And I remember talking to their early leadership team. There were probably, I don't know, 10 people at the time. And when we started working with them, they gave me a t-shirt and it fits so good. Still to this day, easily 15 years later, it's still a t-shirt that my wife will not want to throw out. There's no holes in it. It's great. And I remember saying, oh, this t-shirt feels really good. I made a joke about it. So did my teammate. And they said, yeah, those t-shirts cost double the cost of what typical merch tees cost. And you get what you pay for. So what I would say is for me, best brand of merch experience I have is, when I get tchotchke or I get stuff at my conferences, it goes right in the trash can or I'll donate it if it's something, or I'll just leave it behind. But when I get something that's thoughtful, that really kind of breaks out, um, it's not, the pens and the post-it notes or whatever. It's like, I remember one time I got a amazing moleskin notebook, and it had some really interesting prompts throughout the notebook, but it didn't appear as if it was a diary notebook. It was just a moleskin. But this company clearly injected their values into that notebook, and they probably spent double the cost of the normal thing, but that's a notebook I still have to this day. I won't forget that company. So, again, I think get back to the original thing, designing delight at scale, right? You gotta make the investment where it matters most. Remember, brand is the space you occupy in the hearts, minds, and wallets of your customer. So, if you go the cheap route, I would almost say just don't even show up if you're going to go the cheap route.
Yeah, it reminded me of what you said earlier is begin with the outcome that you want, right? Like, and so I think it does translate in the best of marketing across platforms. So Pete, thank you so much. This has been really, really great. Where can people find more information about you?
Yeah, so I post a lot on LinkedIn. So just Pete Sena on LinkedIn. I have a personal website that definitely needs updating, but it's petesena.com. So PETSENA.com. I would say I post a free newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks. And in that, I cover my new experiments, learning with AI, failures, successes, etc. So I've got a good amount of founders and entrepreneurs that are on that list. I do respond to every email, so feel free to reach out and say hi once you subscribe. And that's basically where you can find me on the internet.
I love it. Pete, this has been really fun, really informative. Let's do it again sometime, okay?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.